Yes, yes. Yes, I will. I will send you a PDF version.
If you could send I'll shrink it and it's all in closest.
Because there are some animations.
If you could shrink it and make the PDF.
Okay, okay. Because the MacBook Pro, it's always complicated for this.
It was showing before.
Oh no, it's going to work. It's going to work. It's just crunching it. Whatever the reason. This is not the slide I wanted to start. This is a conclusion. Done. Any question? Oh, it's better here. Okay, so I'm Jean-Marc Denis from the European Processor Initiative, and I have the honor to be the chair of the board for this initiative. So my home company is Ethos, the European IT company and also the European HPC leader. So I'm going to give you, let's say, a quick introduction to EPI. At the end of this presentation, I will be very pleased to share with you some very preliminary technical information. That will be the very first time. This is something we have not done yet, even in Europe. So this is a first for you. So when we talk about the European Processor Initiative, this is something quite complex that started long ago in 2010. And I'm sure you will agree with that. And the idea was to give to Europe, to the European Union, tools for computing. So I'm going to discuss how this is implemented at the, I would say, the political level, at the vision level, and also at the operational level in this discussion. So EPI is all about that. It's all about European Union, supercomputers, automotive industry, ADAS, deep learning. All of that is part of the story of the European Processor Initiative. So I will have to talk in this presentation about EPI, of course, but not only. I will have to make a quick introduction to the European Silicon Technology Corporation that will be in charge, and you will understand a bit later in the presentation. EST will be in charge to develop the product and to manufacture and to commercialize the product. And EPI is not a processor company, is not developing a processor. EPI develops intellectual property. So the building blocks to get a microprocessor, but not the microprocessor itself. What you get from EPI is intellectual property, nothing else, which is already a lot, indeed, the most important. So I will not spend 10 seconds on this slide because it already has been discussed before, just for you to understand that EPI and EST are coming from a European initiative governed by the 28 countries and the Commission. So the Commission has a very important role in this initiative. This is the, let's say, the lead organization, the lead political entity in the creation of that initiative. And then the 28 countries did agree to create a Euro HPC legal entity that is in charge of the coordination of the whole HPC activity in Europe on the long term. So EPI has been selected after a procurement process that has been launched by the Commission under the H2020 cover, because Euro HPC was not set at this time. No, it was not set yet. So now the responsibility of the project at the European Commission level has been transferred from H2020 to Euro HPC. So now EPI as a consortium is interacting with the Commission and with EuroHPC, and is coordinating with EuroHPC for developing the intellectual property that will be used for the European pre-EXA and exascale machines. So when you will look at the EPI mission, first point, it was the very first objective. This is to provide to European Union independency in high-performance computing processor technologies, first for exascale machines by 2022, 2023, and tentatively, if we are successful in our roadmap, I will describe the roadmap later on, to get a pre-exascale machine using the first generation of the European processor by 2021. So you will see on the roadmap that this is very challenging. Developing a processor is not something you do over the night. You need a lot of money, you need a lot of expertise, a lot of people, a lot of coordination, a lot of work, indeed. So it needs a lot of time. And just having an HPC processor is not enough, because the HPC ecosystem is a niche ecosystem. The volume of production, all in all, let's say on the high-end European market is something between 100,000 to 200,000 units a year. So this is not with such small quantity of processors you can sustain an economical model. So we have to develop for HPC at first, and then to be creative, to develop a sustainable economical model that could support the future developments. So we have interacted a lot with the Commission about that, and we came to the conclusion that because of car manufacturing industry is the very first industry in Europe, and this is where Europe is very, very, very strong. For instance, maybe you don't know, out of the 3 largest car manufacturers in the world, 2 are in Europe. This is Renault-Nissan, that will be #1 in the world this year, and this is Volkswagen. And they produce more than Toyota or any other car manufacturers in the world. And 1/3 of the cars produced in the world, 1/3 is produced in Europe and designed in Europe. And this is the very first industry in terms of employment in Europe. So providing to the car manufacturing industry a new tool, especially in the perspective of autonomous drive, is something that makes a lot of sense. Especially considering, and it's been a big, big, big surprise to us, that the car manufacturers, the European ones, want to have a European partner to engage. They don't want to fully depend from US or from Chinese suppliers for the IT, for the compute elements they will embed in their autonomous cars. They want to have a second source that is located in Europe. So for us, this is a great opportunity to create a sustainable economical model. So the vision we have for EPI is to develop, produce, and sell European-made products, first for HPC, and we will start with HPC, first for computers, for high-end computers with a whole range of products, and second, also based on the solutions we are going to develop for HPC, solutions for connected mobility and autonomous cars. So that will start for the 3rd generation of autonomous cars. That will be with class starting 4, 4+, and 5. So the real autonomous cars for the people who are familiar with the concept. And we extend the concept as well to embedded HPC, which is a vague concept, or edge computing. There are a very large terminology to cover the concept of making a lot of number crunching locally in embedded devices. A car is a device. It's a big device. It could be an expensive device if it is a Mustang, but it is a device. And over time, maybe later, We could also cover eventually additional markets, but this is not something we are focusing in the first step. So all of that is based on a concept that we want to leverage the technology we create at first for HPC with the other markets. So the question of synergy and cost reduction in terms of development cycle is very important for us, especially when we consider that in terms of compute resource for embedded computing, when we look forward to the needs for the 4+ and 5 class cars, it's evaluated to be minimum 100 to 150 teraflops per second of compute resource per car running all time. So this is very similar, especially when you look at the power consumption that is associated in the range of 30 to 50 watts for the compute resource. This is almost similar to the characteristics we observe for exascale machines. So basically, everything we develop for exascale could be downscaled quite easily to the car manufacturing industry. So when we look at the expectations from EPI, from the member state and from the Commission, we have three key objectives. First one, already mentioned, is the question of sovereignty. It's about protect the data, protect the European science, the innovation and intellectual property. So, also to avoid any possible embargo coming from a superpower. And last point, and related to the embargo concept, is to have ITAR-free technologies. So I will not go into the details of what ITAR means. Basically, it means that no one can complain that we do whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want, whatever the purpose. Because ITAR product is controlled basically by the US. And this is not something that is acceptable on the long term for Europe. And the same applies to China, and there is nothing against US, obviously. You can imagine that. So as a consequence, this is to provide to Europe full independency from US and the Chinese components. So the goal is to create a European microprocessor vendor. You could say that there are already some, like ST Micro. ST Micro covers the entry-level, low-end market. And the goal is to cover the mid-range to high-end market with a new player based in Europe, in order Europe can cover the whole range. It doesn't mean that the production will be done in Europe. At this stage, there is no fab in Europe with the right manufacturing process. For this class of microprocessor, for exascale, this is minimum 7 nano or even better manufacturing process. So today, if you want to manufacture with 7 nano, you have to go to Asia. There is no other solution. So basically, being fabless is not an issue at all. So ultimately, that will create value in Europe, so intellectual property, that will also create employment, money in Europe, and why not over time? Well, create in Europe a new Airbus in the IT industry. Why not? This is really something that could be considered as a reasonable long-term perspective for Europe. So, as the company will be based in Europe, with a lot coming from European Union, there will be cost saving coming out of that. European companies and countries will not be only customers, they also will be partners. So there will be cost savings in terms of acquisition of equipment. So all of that is the expected impact from EPI when you look at that from a European or Commission standpoint. So I said that we start from high end. So in terms of scalability and downscaling, I would say, developing at first in HPC has very, very positive consequences on the rest of the market. So HPC, embedded HPC. So obviously I have added artificial intelligence and big data, because this is the buzzwords of the year. So if you don't have a presentation with artificial intelligence and big data, you miss something. But basically, this is a horizontal technology that is used in HPC, that is used in embedded computing, in eHPC systems. So this is something we are also considering for the architecture of the microprocessor. Then we have some side markets, what we call the safety critical markets, about aerospace, Industry 4.0. So this is robotics, this is the factories of the future. And this is also something very important because we can embed specific encryption mechanism or real-time mechanism or security mechanism that is fully under the control of European customers, not depending from a cryptographic engine that they don't really control or they don't get access to the source code or to the IP. Here, they could have full access. And this is something they really, really appreciate a lot. Then cloud and server, so the classical IT market, and it was in your introduction speech, and I think we align on this. The hyperscalers will develop their own technology. It's a question of saving money for them. Developing a microprocessor is only for hardware about 300 million. So for Google, for Facebook, for Amazon, it's very easy. And when you look at the quantity of servers they acquire a year, it would be a big saving for them to develop their own technology. So this is not a market we target. Then the classical server market, you have already big corporations, Lenovo, Dell, HP, who are very strong on this market. Intel is very strong on this market. AMD is very aggressive on this market. So should we try to develop yet another server class market for general purpose stuff in the data center? I don't think so. Maybe we will change our position over time, but right now, this is not a market we target. So how we are going to make that in terms of leveraging the technology? With 3 trends based on a common platform and a common synergy. So at first, there will be a system architecture, co-design, silicon processor choices. So this is in the stage where we are now. So for the core developments, there will be obviously the key technologies, and I will mention which one quite soon in terms of IP and system development. When people look at microprocessor design, they consider the IP development, just the IP. But the integration of the IPs altogether is extremely complex. There is even sometimes more value in the integration of the IP altogether than in the IP itself. It's like building a house from brick and mortar. You can build the Château de Versailles, or you can build my house. It's not exactly the same class of house, but this is the same bricks and the same mortars. So the integration, the quality of the architecture, the quality of the people working with the brick and the mortar is absolutely key. So we make a big focus on this aspect at first. And then, in terms of technology, there will be a general purpose processor. And for the first generation, that will be likely based on ARM. And there is a note about that. We are negotiating with ARM the terms and conditions of the contract. So the choice of ARM still depends on the result of the current negotiation. But ARM, let's say, is perceived as a first step effort because this is not European technology. It's a Japanese IP. So on the long term, as Europe wants to have a full control of the IP, when I say long term, it's 5 to 10 years. It's a long-term industrial process. We plan to move from ARM IP to European IP. And for doing that, we are starting an effort based on RISC-V, which is an open source IP. RISC-V is too young. It's still a baby in terms of IP quality for having a general purpose high-end microprocessor. It's still in the very entry level. So we are making an effort to develop an accelerator, a double precision floating point engine as an accelerator with RISC-V. And then, over time, generation after generation, we will add complexity to our RISC-V IP to get, at the end, a full RISC-V based general purpose microprocessor. And from that, we will develop with some partners of the consortium that I will explain on the next slide, an automotive microprocessor that will specifically answer to the need of the European car manufacturing industry. Okay? So when we look at the member of the consortium, of the EPI consortium, we have the best European industrial companies and research lab working in the silicon stuff. So I will not describe all of them. What is interesting is to look at let's say, the map of expertise. You have HPC and research labs, and amongst the best in this area, with Barcelona Supercomputing Center, CEA, Cineca, ETH Zurich, Jülich, well, all the big dogs, the European big dogs are present in this part, and they are working on the software aspect, because not only we have to develop hardware, but we have some very low-level software to develop, and they also work on the global architecture for the HPC specification. We also have industrial experts, with Bull, who is an Ethos company, with E4, which is an Italian company, with Extol, which is a German interconnect company, and they have very interesting IP for the development of the NOC, which is the network on chip, the glue between the cores. We have Semidynamics, who is specialized in RISC-V, and we have ST, who is contributing with very small IP, but that are critical. This is the IP about the power management of the microprocessor. This is a very critical IP, while nobody knows about this class of IP out of the world of the silicon industry. So when you look at the combination of all of them, we have, let's say, talents, big money, large teams, lots of quality, so we have no reason not to succeed with such a combination. So that group of corporations and organizations will develop IP, and out of this IP, we need to transform into real products. So most of the IP will be produced by EPI, and then there will be the European Silicon Technology Corporation, that will be a fabless corporation that will take the IP from EPI, that will potentially add additional IP coming from different places, and over time EST will develop its own IP, and then EST will manufacture and will sell complete product lines, not only to European companies, by the way, because EST is a chip manufacturer like AMD. And tomorrow, if Lenovo, HP, Dell want to buy microprocessors from EST, they are welcome. Obviously, there is absolutely no problem with that. So on EST will be, let's say, the industrial weapon or arm. I don't want to have something that is too aggressive in my terminology, that will address the need defined by the European Commission and by EPI. And by the way, first information that is public now, the code name of the first generation is RHEA, R-H-E-A. Look at the Greek mythology. You will know why this is RHEA. So a lot of expertise, and I see that the time is running very fast, so I'm going not to spend a lot of time on this. But with with EPI on EST, we can cover the whole life cycle for the development, from the technical specification to the sales and marketing of the products, back to the specs of the next gen. So to some extent, and it's a very centric vision for EPI on EST, I do believe that EPI on EST are, for Europe, the cornerstone for the development of the exascale terminology, exascale world in Europe. So that's a very important tool in the hands of the Commission for the future. So when we look at the roadmap we consider for the EPI, IP, and EST products, it is planned to, well, this is European stuff, internal stuff, it's behind us. What is interesting to consider is that we are, where are we? We are here, we are starting here. So we are on track with a plan that has been defined almost 1 year ago. So we start the design, hopefully by the end of this month. We plan to tape out in Q1 2020. So it's a quite aggressive plan because it's less than 18 months to design the chip. And then we plan to bring up the first generation by the end of 2020, early 2021. And hopefully, if there is no major bug in the design, we can start the real production by mid of 2021. So it means that the first machines that will be from the pre-exascale generation could use the Gen 1 version of the microprocessor. This is the plan. So obviously, there are risks everywhere when you develop a new product from scratch. So we plan to minimize that risk with a very, let's say, a conservative approach in terms of development of the IP. At the beginning of the life, we will integrate, we'll have a big focus on the integration of existing IP. So we are going to develop some IP, especially around RISC-V, but it's a few IP. Then for the second generation, we will develop more IP. And then over time, we will develop more and more IP. And over 5 to 10 years, the plan is that we have the control of the whole IP in Europe. But there are some IP that are useless. For instance, developing a PCI Express IP, developing a DDR5 with DDR6, 7, 8, I don't know. IP doesn't make sense. You can get it for very low cost from a Korean or from a Taiwanese company. So does it make sense to develop that class of IP? No. It's better to buy it off the shelf. So this is how we are going to work. So as the time is moving very, very fast, I will go to the one slide to say that EST plans to have a complete product line, at first for HPC, so the RIA generation for the pre-exascale system, the Chronos generation for the exascale systems, and then we will downscale or adapt the technology from RIA to get deep learning processors, cryptographic processors, ADAS coprocessors, and also specific accelerators, and then with evolution for exascale computing. So one word about the preliminary specs. So obviously, those specs are not very exciting because this is the minimum specs I can disclose today. All the specs about performances, power consumptions, byte per flop, or double precision flops per watt, this class of information we will disclose later on. At this stage, it's, for us, it's crystal clear that will be at least 7 nanometer manufacturing process or better. This is under discussion with the different possible manufacturers. We have a specific technology for having, let's say, a common floor plan where we can plug many different IP, and this is how we are going to get a very large spectrum of processors to offer to the market. In terms of implementation, we are going to work with multiple 2.5D dies. That's quite interesting and innovative. And the die size will be quite large, over 600 square millimeters. It looks big, but not so much, not so much. When you know how to proceed, you can get a yield that is very, time is both, I'm almost finished. You can get a yield that is quite efficient over for very large dies. So in terms of instruction set, again, this is under the consequence of the contract we are negotiating with ARM. We plan to go with 8.4 instruction set. That is almost equivalent to the one you get in the Fujitsu post-FX100 microprocessor, plus additional deep learning and artificial intelligence new instructions. We also plan to get RISC-V double precision flop engine, a specific accelerator, and the NOC we are going to use is coming from the Mont Blanc project, the Mont Blanc 2020 projects. On something in terms of spec, while there is no number here, I want to mention that we have a very, very special attention to the ease of use and the ease of performance. We want the users use a GCC, simple GCC, no specialized compiler, and they get huge performances with no effort. This is the goal. So for achieving this, we will focus a lot on the byte per flop ratio. That will be, hopefully, if we are not wrong in our estimation, the best in the world from this standpoint. This is what we target. So we will release the number when we will be sure about the number we can really achieve. But we plan to achieve something that is extremely performing, extremely aggressive in terms of byte per flop ratio. This is the main focus for us in the HPC world. And as a consequence, the peak double precision flop, we don't mind very much. We don't mind, basically. We want to get huge efficiency, but not a peak number that will kill the world. No, not at all. This is not a focus. So as a conclusion, sorry for being late, there is an ambition for the European project. In the last century, Airbus has been a big success from Europe. So now we want to repeat that success in the new data world, so with a world champion for the silicon industry in the high-end segment. So this is the ambition that is in Europe, with EPI as a funded project for making research and development, and EST as a new corporation that will be in charge of the manufacturing and the business associated to EPI. So it's a long way to go. There is a lot of risk, but option is not a failure. So we plan to succeed. So I'm finished with this presentation. It was a short introduction. I used to spend more than 1 hour to run this presentation normally, but already half an hour is quite nice to give you this talk. So thank you. I don't know if we have time for 1 or 2 questions, maybe no.
CPU. Your intent and your path on chip production for high-performance computing and support the European automotive market is very clear. But then you had on there automotive CPU. Is in fact the plan here to go after automotive and aerospace like engine control modules as being the processor of choice for European automotive manufacturers?
Yes.
Okay.
And we are discussing with the leading European companies in this area. But their very first question we have to address is, are we ITAR-free?
Yeah, and the reason for me asking that is that you didn't necessarily highlight it. Today's discussion is around high-performance computing and what your plan and intent would be to provision that for Europe but on there it said automotive CPUs, which is a very wide market, very high volumes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We work very closely with the most important European industries in all sectors, and co-design is a very interesting point from this perspective, because it's the very first time they are facing a silicon vendor or silicon IP that ask them to include their specs in a future product. So they like it very much.